No niin, jos on päällä, niin ehkä helpompi kuitenkin, jos esitämme kysymykset suomeksi, jos kaikilla kansainvälisillä vierailla on tulkkaus käytössä. Eli meillä oli paljon kysymyksiä ja otan parin kokonaisuuteen. Eli erityisesti oltaisiin haluttu kuulla tarkemmin, että miten kiteytetysti, mikä olisi paras malli valita komissaarit, joka on meillä nyt tietysti kohtapuoliin mietittävänä, niin mitä konkreettisia ehdotuksia siitä, että miten komissaarit valittaisiin. Sitten millä perusteella otetaan ryhmiä mukaan tähän prosessiin, ketkä kaikki ovat osallistuneet ja keiden tulisi voida osallistua prosessiin. Mikä on sopiva laajuus ja aikahaitari, eli mandaatin laajuus, aikahaitari, kuinka paljon tähän niin kuin valmisteluprosessiin erityisesti tarvittaisiin aikaa. Nämä on tietysti isoja kysymyksiä, varmaan voitte poimia, mitkä tuntuvat tästä relevanteilta. Sitten toisena kysymyksenä, mihin toivottiin vähän lisää tietoa, on, että mitä prosessista seurasi. Sitä sivuttiin alustuksista, mutta tästä haluttiin kuulla vielä tarkemmin. Esimerkiksi, että miten se auttoi sitä, että ihmiset tulevat toimeen keskenään, niin oliko siinä jotain sellaisia, mitä prosesseista on seurannut. Tässä ehkä kaksi kokonaisuutta, jotka tuli vahvasti esiin.
Okei. Ryhmä, joka käsitteli komission käytännön toteutukseen liittyviä kysymyksiä, niin kokosi seuraavia kysymyksiä. Ja meidän ryhmä totesi, että tämä ensimmäinen kysymys ei ole kannanotto saamelaismääritelmää millään osin puoleltaan vastaan, vaan todetaan, että kaikissa olosuhteissa täällä pohjoisessa elää muitakin kuin saamelaisia. Ja miten tällaiseen tervehtymiseen tähtäävään sovintoprosessiin voivat osallistua ne, jotka eivät ole saamelaisia. Miten antaa tilaa tässä prosessissa myös tässä suhteessa tapahtuvalle tervehtymiselle. Sitten kysyttiin lasten ja nuorten osuutta, ehkä eniten Kanadan komissioon liittyen, miten varmistaa, vaikka puhutaan menneisyyden kokemuksista, että lapsilla ja nuorilla on oma tila tämän päivän kokemuksien valossa tulla kuulluksi. Sitten ehkä Johannalle ja myös Paulalle, valtiosihteeri Lehtomäelle, joka on täällä kuuntelemassa valtion puolelta, niin miten valtion tulee satsata omia resurssejaan omalta puoleltaan siihen, että tämä komission käsittely ei ole erillinen, että myös valtion puolella tapahtuu oppimista ja se tapahtuu samassa suhteessa tähän komission työskentelyyn. Sitten on kommenttina, ehkä ei niinkään kysymyksenä, tämä esimerkiksi henkilötietosuojalain vaikutus näihin kuulemisiin ja materiaaliin. Sitten todettiin tarve Inarin saamelaisten historiaa käsittelevän seminaarin tässä niin kuin tiedon kapasiteetin lisäämisessä, mihin Edward viittasi. Tuettiin Mary Wilsonin tätä teemaseminaaria, että jos on paikka, jossa kertoa tarinaa, niin tällainen temaattinen lähestymistapa. Todettiin myös, että on hyvä tietää resurssien määrä, että tiedetään realistinen niin kuin laajuus, että on ehkä hyvä tietää valtion puolelta viestiä, minkä kokoisista resursseista taloudellisesti voi olla kysymys. Kysymyksenä vieraille todettiin, että komissaarien niin kuin olennaista on luottamus ja todettiin, että usein ihmiset puhuvat mieluiten omillensa. Ja Mari viittasi tähän omassa esityksessään, miten varmistaa tämä luottamus, jos oman yhteisön edustaja ei ole komissiossa, esimerkiksi tarkemmin tätä advisory groupien neuvonantajaryhmien roolia. Sitten prosessista, kuinka tätä neuvottelua olisi hyvä, onko enemmän vinkkejä, miten käydä aiheen ja teeman rajaamiseen liittyvää neuvottelua, ja että miten, jos komissioon tulee rajattu teema, niin muiden teemojen kanssa voidaan jatkaa myöhemmin. Kuinka luontevaa on myöhempi työskentely ja millä nimellä niitä kutsutaan. Sitten kommenttipuolet painottiin jo esiin tullutta turvallisen kuulemisen merkitystä ja pidettiin hyvänä näitä itkulaavujen tai tulistelun saamelaisten omaan kansan ja kulttuuriin liittyvien tapojen ottamista mukaan tähän. Ja no sitten viimeisenä otan vielä sen, että on paljon kysymyksiä ja voisi sanoa huolia ja pelkoja siihen, että johtaako tämä esimerkiksi maanoikeuksien uudelleenjärjestelyyn ja tähän Edwardon viittaamaan niin kuin kapasiteetin vahvistamiseen ja käsitteiden selventämiseen, niin toivottiin sellaista keskustelua, jossa tätä asiaa avattaisiin, etteivät nämä pelot, epäluulo varjostaisi sitä prosessia liikaa, koska tämän tyyppisiä huhuja on ollut liikkeellä.
Meidän ryhmä taas keskusteli hyvin pitkälti näistä suosituksista saamelaiskäräjille, ja näissä erityisesti nousi saamen kielen asema tässä prosessissa ja sen niin kuin mukaanotto ja huomioiminen alusta saakka. Toinen asia oli se, että olisiko mahdollista vaikka saada Norjasta tai Ruotsista saamelaisia tähän niin kuin prosessiin avuksi, ja myös se, että kuinka tätä tietoa tavallaan voidaan jakaa, kun esimerkiksi olemme saaneet aivan juuri tiedon siitä, että Ruotsin valtio ei aio aloittaa prosessia, niin että miten voimme sitten jakaa näitä kokemuksia myös sinne päin. Sovimme niin, että meidän ryhmän jäsenet kysyvät kysymyksiä, jos heillä on, ja ajattelin nyt 3 meidän ryhmäläiselle antaa puheenvuoron, ja ajattelin Ailea, Nihkolasta ja Yrjöä, jos se kaikille meille sopii. Niin 3 lyhyttä kysymystä. Tuossa oli todella laajasti hyviä kysymyksiä. Jos Aile aloittaa.
Kiihtuve, jolla suolas huomahtaas. Mun hui fuolas saamekielä tilis tämän prosessas, millä saamekielä saa jäädähtäas. Mun haluaisin riikkaikas saashetoutiin kuulla, makkar outamerahkas siisle soapadan prosessain masleht olu kiela mieltä. Makkar joutosa sahtelee, moo olmopeise taas se verta sajkävähit, itse heäni kiela. Ja moot kiellä, kota laktasa nu ollu, nu chaukataitte min traumaitte, tahan lämmäs storimus oasin, tein traumaima hemialmokittele lämmäs. Te makkar joutosi tässä lämmäs, moot kiellä positiona sahtan annettaan prosessassa.
Kiihtu, te Nihkolas.
Kiihtuu. Mun Jeralin, mun ja suomakilli, mä kysyisin, että miten on niin kun, tai minkälaiselta kannalta kannattaisi lähteä sitä niin kun eettistä puolta siitä miettimään, että meidän niin kun oman kansan sieltä lähtöisin totta kai, mutta että mikä niin kuin, pitäisikö niin kuin sitä varten olla joku oma, vielä oman kansan jostain niin kuin asiantuntijoista koostuva ryhmä, ja sitten siellä tulla sitten se konsultaatio myöskin kansainväliselle tasolle, josta sitten niin kuin saataisiin sitä prosessia etenemään ja myöskin sellaisella niin kuin niitä mahdollisia ongelmakohtia mahdollisimman aikaisin myöskin ratkaistua ja selkeytettyä. Kiitos.
Ja minä annan tälle Kari Kyrölle, koska hän on tuossa saamelaispolitiikassa ollut enempi matkassa.
Kiitoksia. Meillä on täällä Suomen saamelaisalueella se tilanne, että lähinnä Enontekiöllä ja Inarissa niin osa saamelaisen väestöstä on menettänyt saamen kielen. Ja kun Suomen saamelaiskäräjälain mukaan kieli on yksi kriteeri, ehkäpä jopa pääkriteerinä ollut saamelaisuutta määriteltäessä, niin nyt iso osa saamelaisia on siitä syystä saamelaisten tässä virallisesta elimestä saamelaiskäräjiltä ulkona, eivätkä he voi vaikuttaa omaan elämänsä koskevaan päätöksentekoon. Se kielen menetys on johtunut pääosin kirkon toimista 1700-1800-luvulla ja kielensä menettäneitä lappalaisten jälkeläisiä, nykyisiä saamelaisia, nimitetään sitten siitä syystä ikään kuin suomalaisiksi. Väitetään, että kun he ei ole kieltä, niin he ovat suomalaisia, eivätkä kuulu saamelaiskäräjien vaaliluetteloon. Eli kiista siitä, kuka on saamelainen, juontaa tästä juurensa hyvin paljon, ja se on täällä erittäin repivä ja polttava. Oliko teillä siellä niissä sovintoprosesseissa, missä te olitte, niin oliko teille vastaavaa ongelmaa, että kiisteltiin kovasti, kuka kuuluu alkuperäiskansaan? Kiitos.
Kiitos, ja nyt pyydämme näitä asiantuntijoita vastaamaan kysymyksiin. Aloittaisiko Eduardo?
This is exactly what I didn't want to happen. I'm very anxious about these questions because, of course, it would be very presumptuous for me to say that I have an answer, and also because I recognize the effort that it takes to actually formulate these questions in such a clear manner and to focus on the real problems. What I usually find out when a meeting about a truth commission is good is that two things happen. People share their stories and people ask questions. So people share their stories, and that means that the participation is genuine and that people are making an honest effort. And the fact that people make proposals and pose specific questions means that it's not just emotional, it's also rational. And we are also thinking about how to deal with concrete problems. Now, many of the questions have to do with a question of identity. And I understand that it is an extremely complicated issue, and it is a complicated issue in all the countries that need to recognize status, because many countries recognize status in a different way. And of course, I cannot presume to know how to answer to this question, but it is quite obvious that it's a discussion that is pretty much felt. And it's a discussion that needs to be done without hurting more. Because obviously, what we have heard a couple hours ago is that questions of identity hurt. They inevitably hurt. They hurt when you have to hide your identity. It hurts when someone stigmatizes you for your identity. It hurts when someone denies your identity. So I don't know what the answer is, but I know that the way to deal with this question has to be compassionate. Has to be led by feelings of understanding the common humanity of those that are asking these questions. And think the best of people and not think the worst. So I really don't have a concrete answer on that issue, but I think that there needs to be a more constructive discussion about this. But that is, of course, related to everything else, right? Because that has to do with the topics, the themes that a commission is going to look at. And I think that perhaps one of the roots of all these problems have to do with a fact that was beyond the control of the Sami, whatever their status is. And that thing that was out and beyond their control was this history of colonialism. And some of you have been insisting on this question. In the end, it is not necessarily the case that individuals decide to act and they act in a bad or in a not bad way. People act in the circumstances that history put them in. And in many cases, these circumstances were unfair because they were the result of colonialism. And colonialism has affected all of us. It affects the colonized, it affects the settler, it affects the humanity of everyone. And I say this coming from a society that became independent almost 200 years ago, and that became colonized 500 years ago in Latin America, and where societies where we had genocides against indigenous populations, and where we also had mix of populations, and therefore where it becomes impossible at some point to say who is what. So it's extremely painful. And the inheritance, the cursed inheritance of these colonial situations is that they divide us more.
1 minute.
Thank you. So I do think that this is a big ethical question too, right? And to me, the only ethical way to answer to this is the principle that Marie mentioned of doing no harm. That whatever is the response or the mechanism to answer to these issues, the focus should be to do no harm, to not hurt one another more. Right? History has already hurt us enough.
Thank you. Then Simon, please.
Thank you very much for those interesting questions. I hope I've understood them through the translation. I really have, I think, two comments I'd like to make. One is positive and one is negative. The positive point, I think, is this question of language, from what I've heard this afternoon, is absolutely central to the mandate of the Commission. So however the mandate is decided, I think it needs to include two things. It first of all needs to examine the impact over many years of the suppression of the Sami language. And secondly, it needs to look at how the Sami language can be recovered and restored. I'd like to give you one tiny positive example to inspire you. There's an area of England in the extreme southwest called Cornwall. And the Cornish people feel they have much more in common with part of France, Brittany, than they do with the British. And there was a language called Cornish, a very ancient language. And this language was almost exterminated. And I do not exaggerate. In about 1960, it was recognized there was only one person left who could speak Cornish as a living language. And from that one person, the language has been recovered. And if you now go to Cornwall, you see the road signs are in English and in Cornish. So it is possible to reinvigorate a language. So this question of putting the Sami language at the center of the work of the Commission seems to me very important. That's my positive point. I'm sure my colleagues may well want to disagree with me on the next point. When I set my students an essay, the title that always excites them the most is a famous quote from the Canadian philosopher, you know this quote, Michael Ignatieff. And he says, perhaps the most you can expect from a truth commission is to reduce the number of lies in circulation in a society. He's making a very provocative point, but it's a very good essay question because it makes people think, realistically, what can a truth commission achieve given the limits of resources, the political situation, and so forth. The point I really want to make here is it's really, really important that the Sami people have realistic expectations of this commission. The title of Ignatiev's piece is called Articles of Faith. And he says that there is a great danger in putting too much faith in a Truth Commission process because you may be disappointed. And there are two real dangers with that. The first is there's the great German philosopher Theo Adorno warned of the dangers of what he called false reconciliation. This is a reconciliation which appears to listen. It appears to promise you something, but it does not manage to break the spell of the past, and it does not deliver what it promises. And there are many experiences around the world, I think, of people being disappointed, particularly by the ways in which a government or a society fails to honour the promises made by a Truth Commission or the recommendations made by a Truth Commission. The second thing I alluded to briefly in my talk was for people giving evidence or giving testimony to a Truth Commission. You are making yourselves very vulnerable when you do that. And it is possible to come to harm if you are not properly protected. So it will be really, really important. And this is where I think Marie has a lot of wisdom to offer. That when people are invited to talk about these very difficult personal experiences, that they are not exposed to harm. And there are some warnings here. I'm thinking particularly of research from South Africa and Sierra Leone. And I've also seen it myself in Northern Ireland, where telling your story can actually re-traumatize you. You relive the harm that has been caused to you, or you simply retreat into the unhelpful position of seeing yourself purely as a victim. So whatever happens when it comes to the telling of stories, they must be told in such a way that they respect and empower the people who tell them. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Marie, please.
Very rich questions and many questions. Thank you. Eduardo said that questions of identity hurt. And I agree with that, but I would add, questions of identity also heal. And so to your question of language, in our commission, we made it part of our practice that wherever there was an indigenous language, or in some cases several languages that were still being used, we provided simultaneous translation of those languages in our hearings so that people could speak in whatever language they wanted to speak. That was just part of the way we do things. And there are regions of Canada, specifically where I live in the neighboring territory of Nunavut, where indigenous languages have official language status. So people already have a practice of using languages and expecting them to be translated. That does not mean the languages are all vibrant. Some of them are very endangered, but it is honored, and we certainly use that practice. Now, I would say, when I say languages, English and French being the official languages of our country, and indigenous languages. As many of you know, there are many people from other parts of the world who now live in Canada. We didn't make languages available in whatever language people spoke. It was limited to English and French and the indigenous languages of the region where we were. Our official reports and all of our documents were in 2 official languages, but we also have online oral versions of a number of Indigenous languages, and that was work that we did in partnership with certain provinces and territories after our work was completed. So that, and not of the whole, we did a 10-volume report. So it was not the whole thing, but it was the summary report of about 200 pages or so that was made available in various Indigenous languages. I would say that's an area of ongoing work where individual jurisdictions, provinces could be called upon, or even corporate supporters, to subsidize the oral translation of a number of the records into other Indigenous languages. I think that would be a huge public service. To come back to the issue of language being traumatic, that issue came up. There was not one hearing we had, not one hearing day, where the issue of language did not come up. I already knew going in that it would be an issue. I did not know that it would be such a recurring issue. And so one of the calls to action in our report is for the creation of an official languages commissioner for Indigenous languages, on par with what we now have for the official languages of English and French. And that legislative drafting and consultation is going on as we speak. I'm going back to Canada, to Ottawa, and meeting with some of the Indigenous leadership that has asked for my help with preambles and such related to that. So that leads me to one of the other questions raised, which was, I'm sorry, sir, I didn't get your name, but you were asking about the question of what difference does it make in the impact. I believe that was your question. But what difference has it made? And that is the gamble. There were many days where I would, especially when I was tired, I would think, what if we are doing all of this gut-wrenching work, heartbreaking work, and nothing changes? And where I came to my own peace about that was realizing that even if on a societal level things did not change as fast as I might have wanted, for those people who were directly involved in the work we were doing, who came to the hearings and so on, the process itself was making change, was contributing to transformation. And so for those who talked about the trauma of sharing stories, and we've just had Simon reference it again, yes, you have to take great care. You have to make sure that you have got support for people. But at the same time, one of the things that I heard probably at every single hearing was people would say, I feel so much lighter for having shared my experience with you. I feel I have set down a load that I have been carrying around for 60 years. I feel like I can breathe for the first time since I left residential school. Those are not my words. That's the sort of thing that we kept hearing people say. Or I feel like today is the first day of my real healing. You know, sort of the letting of the poison inside and of the burden inside. So it's not all one thing and it's not all the other. It's different things for different people, and there's no getting around that. No decision you make is going to please everybody. No process you put in place is going to please everybody. No commissioners you choose are going to please everybody. No report you come up with is going to please everybody. But I think that the integrity comes in the transparency, the honesty, the shared purpose, and the best effort and hard work, and the very respectful, careful listening, so that the people who participate recognize themselves in whatever report you come up with, in whatever product you come up with, so that people feel that they have been heard. In terms of who is Sami, I want to touch on that question. I wouldn't presume to be able to answer that question for you. But I talked earlier today about the framework for reconciliation being the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And it talks about the issue of identity and the rights of people to determine their own membership. It doesn't give that away to a government to decide who is and who isn't. It doesn't give it away to a blood quantum to decide who is or who isn't. It says people have the right to determine their own membership, and that implies kinship bond. It implies community connection, family ties. It implies that you know each other, that you live in connection, in community, in relationship with each other, in the ways that you define that for yourselves. I can't presume to answer that for you. But that's the spirit of the UN Declaration on that point, as I understand it. In our context, that had nothing to do with who could participate in our Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Our Truth and Reconciliation Commission, okay, this is this last point I want to make. It was about people who were in residential schools, and those were the people who were eligible for compensation and so on. But because our commission was not about any of those compensation things, we said anyone who feels they have something to say that is important in ways that they've been affected by this history, even those who have just heard about it last year or whatever, if you feel you have something that the commission needs to hear, you are welcome to come and speak to us. And so we didn't leave anybody out, but people had to register and they had to respect time limits. People had about 15, 20 minutes to speak. And that way it was very inclusive, and we reflected back on all of that. I know you raised other questions, but those were the ones about the commissioners. Maybe we can come back to that if there's time at the end. About the selection, those were some important questions as well.
Thank you, Mary. Laila, please.
Joo, kiitos. Tishan lette nu isturas vuodollos kajaldaga hattel vaattis vastirit ja tus viisu, mutta mundal kähtsellä muhtin kajaldaga mahorra munje heivollos vastirit. Ja tietysti, että kun saahkadas, että makar volkasatji kalka opadan parokui, kun vois pohtaa että määritä, että tarbu soapadan prosessi, soapadan komissioni. Mun mielestä, kun mun aina tämän parkku ehtymään mun parakan, että just det takkar sullassa sääsin, tälle huidehällös, että haluat mun käsata koska iäspäässä määritit aipas fridja, makar darput, tämän haluat mun kisläht. Ja mait halidi hålla tackar dohtavuoda tackar soabadan prosess. Saamin aina hillämys koassa dohkuvan obbalat tänä että saami kuovlu läht koloniseriuvun. Ja ersaltis taht lyhti vuogas ashi tackar parkkus. Tänä että Kielkadihtan, että mo saami kuollut äänamat tjaadzi lähtee koloniserion laagai pokite. Ja tahtanne stahtauts vastatus ja tälle varada mille hui pahtsaa ollut saamelaisia. Just det tahte hilkoassikin lämmästäkään stahta päälle sillä olla sit tavirikkeelle stahta heillä olla sit kuassa tohkandan, että sillä lähtän tahkan. Minä kan tiedän lyhti okta takarashi miguille hui. Mi koska sihki tämän paroko vuohkai, tämän ulemili ja maittaa hieman voi kuoda asia. Tämän tihti kun toni sahte sirre, kun saami asia pirrata, ferti hieman voi kuoda asia lähtoppe mieltä farus. Siitä palletaan, että sovintokomissioon riutada hieman voi kuoda kajaldaga. Tätä tietysti ei tagadan. Mutta tässä saattaa kuitenkin ära jutsaami, mutta ei tuomustuoluja ja ära eikä määritä takarashi, kun että sijoitusta niimadussa, että jaha, tässä lagustoni ja toppelet lämmäs ära rektikulttuura, ära voi kuoda kuodit oudelkustaat. Tänä mun jahkan tästä riggodahkan, että saami kulhalle rairasta, että millät aalapmot, okta aalapmot ja mun että saami asedouti ma chuvo maittai dambarkkudan kaloinan hui eston vuogasin. Mun jahkan tästä lyhti vuogas ja puolre ja tarpaslas, että saami asedouti le hui kouttajis. Dambarkkus maittai siigät parikit Suomen päällä ja ei mutta Ruotsin päällä ja Norkaa päältä vaikka asiakon. Ja tähän lägger just tätä kielellä, että tätä kuulahallan tätä valdo. Just tackar bara gå vuolkovo ja doppel shadda amaskielellä. Det går valdo kuulahallan kaskaa. Det lär ju den alkus jo vuolkasatjilamas poastut. Teos historialla svärda kun hisahti juulik moktikin tänä holot mun lähtuota ei massaan kielaset. Mutta tämän sahtamait stahtapäällis takkar bara kun ad odai madu sadan mannelänut arpu saami ahpusi mannelänut arpu että saami maana hoits maana ei kadfalla manne feretti hempo naftsipit just tässä että hatsi sitten takkar vuodu takkar odda politiikalla jutsämai. Kun mun jahkan tavirihkaitte Tämmöllä storimus haastattelussa lähti tavirihkain lähdä politiikkaa da jutsa minun kaaridji, tohkui tjaaga saami vuotta. Ja vielä saatsi rahparuku teko rahpahtien, että saami vuotta on joka lunttulas sai riikka taasis. No, että ja kille saamelas. Tämän laavti kutsukus mun parikin, millä taatterumaani. Toppi ilentat nu hirmat stora ashi. Mi går har laimet uski tänä mohsi ieja definierit iejaset. Ja kähtsemet tänä makar vuogisis tänä että gila romani giile ja sin sogai hoktoa ja vissonia. Ja mutta me lärän om skulle algoalmagi pira saakka det går saamelaisesti. Tällä det uski tänä mistä lädat numut Marie mitas nammuhi tästä algoalmagi julkaistus. Tahtan läde godat mai huolkasatti takkarparkku ja toppahan tajjodanat. Just tämän killä saamelaisessa tälle saamelaischiedjekäkälki määrivitaan. No että mun jutsan että det går takkar huidäällä soassin soabadan ja tuohtavuodan parkkus tapp Suomen vältä lyhtsi just tätä että puolustas ja vissuta paraku kalka läht taavisti tämän alkualman julkaistussa. Että ei sahtella hääjuhkota mitä appele. Ja tahtangal läda huolkasatji mai suomalle mai torojon riikkaskassatji. No tämän tas miepäässä eri ja tietysti tätä huipuolella vuodu juridiikkalatji ja politiikkalatji. Saamen vuoda identiteettikaajalta kana jorran tässä että lämmas hui häpla saamelaisen ja stahta ja äänen logo almugolle teko annan saami teko hääjuha almugin ja politiikkalle mai painandan. Ja tälle fahkalle jorran tässä että saami vuotta fasta shaddan juoga millä hui puolre ja aina puh haali vielä saamelaiset. No että tehän pohti tätä huivattiska jaldaga namalla sidana mohtun sujj saami vuoda. Kun tahtan olla lämmön paitsa tarpo että just saamelaiset kalki säilyy kielaset, kulttuuriset, arbeviruset visuta ei pohtavas polvaja. Tähän varten juogalagan suotjelus. Tahtan näitä vuodojuurta alkualmu voikvuoden, tämän että onko suotjelit. Tämän tihti kun alkualmukin ilta faamu positiona, kun sisahtit määrilit, iäjä, okto. No, teille takkar, ja tämä realistalas, tämä liian lohpaa. Tämä että tämä realismo, että mun mielestä kun hiikalksi tämä lähtee huolkasatji, että kun saami servoda täällä saakastis kohta tampira, ei avu kuitenkaan huolkasai suolikin, että mille realistalas. Kun tämä mun jahkan täällä jo kartsi tämän, että tässä ei puhdi mihkikin. No, että för kun huosjutsi mielemä, että saami servoda haalida ja tarpsa ja tällä huolkasatji. Ja tällä stahta bara kun kuulahalla muisteli tänä, missä mielessä realistalas. Ja det ei vadi kosnu. Joka säissä että mossa tämän sihki toimallat juovolit ja maita että hatte siitä kar arvo joka takkar mi tämän tohkehämi ja tämän saamivuhti tämän arvo mi kalksi lähtoppe. Joo, munin jahki musi tahdoitse huijolu ära. Det huolksat ju slä hirsmärre där ge almo för det ersmärrivit. Ja saamilla haalolla mus ersmärre där ge något det. Den tällä takkar princippa kun mai suomasta ahtella mit torojon riikkaksat. Kiitos.
Kiitos Laila. I ask Marie shortly to answer to how to elect the commissioners question, please.
Yes, on the selection of commissioners, and I'm not advocating for a certain approach, I'm just clarifying what happened in our context that may be useful to you. And the first is this, that the question of commissioner was raised twice, and the second point was about trust, and how do you build trust among the commissioners. One of the things that is really helpful by having a very clear mandate is that your role as a commissioner is not a delegate of any particular group of people, but rather one of the commissioner team that is responsible for a shared mandate. So I was not there representing the North. Commissioner Sinclair was not representing the Anishinaabe people. Chief Littlechild was not there to represent the Cree. And everybody else was mad because they didn't have a representative. That was not what our job was. Our job, each of us, and collectively, was to do work in collaboration towards the purposes of our mandate. And it was the mandate that was negotiated by the various parties to say, what is the common goal we are trying to achieve? So I'm making up examples because I don't know your reality well enough. But if the reality was, let's get clarity around land ownership, who collectively owns what, that would be a focus. If the issue was around your residential school experience, that would be a different focus. If the issue was around migration territories for reindeer, that would be a different focus. Whatever it is, and I'm not making a suggestion, but then everybody's job is to that purpose and not to represent my subgroup. So that's a principle that I would really encourage you in because it kept us together. We were never pitted against each other, but rather brought different perspectives to the common purpose. The second thing is, how do you select the commissioners? I think the issue of how you select them is every bit as important as who you select. And if you have engagement on the selection process and what it is you are trying to achieve, then you can get more generous, if I can put it that way, on choosing who your actual commissioners will be. And as I explained to you, we had a big committee. They all had a chance to ask the questions that were pertinent to them in selecting, in hiring the commissioners. Obviously for us in Canada, it was critical that the chair be an Indigenous person. But they also wanted there to be non-Indigenous representation. I don't think they had a predetermination that it should be 2 Indigenous, 1 Indigenous, or the other way around. I don't know why they decided on 3, but they did. How many you have can be double-edged. There were times where 3 felt like not enough, given the size of our country and the size of our mandate. And there are other commissions where they've had many commissioners, where there are too many different opinions to hold it together. So to think about the size of your country and what it is you're zeroing in on, 3 keeps 2 from having a split vote. 3 requires consensus. I sat in your parliament yesterday. You have a tradition of consensus building. Where I come from, we also have that. No political parties. And people talk and talk and talk until they've got a shared understanding, and then they come to a decision. And those are ancient decision-making models that they can be really valuable, but they take time. So that's what I just wanted to say about the issue of commission. And I think having them appointed with no process that is transparent is a recipe for criticism. Because people want to know, how did you get to, I got asked that, so I know it's on people's minds. How did you get to be one? And then when you could explain to people, they would say, okay, I understand how that happened. There was an answer, and it was a logical answer that people could understand. Yeah.
Eduardo?
Yes, I just want to add a couple of things, being in agreement with what Marie has indicated here. And that is that to do this, you need to take your right time. It requires time to do a correct appointment process. What it should not appear is that it's somehow digitized and pre-ordered, because in that case, the commissioners are going to lose legitimacy. I think that the best way, if there is a time to do it, is first to inform people what is this commission going to be like, so that people know on the basis of this mandate who to nominate, or whether they want to nominate themselves. Also, it would be useful to have some time after nominations to receive observations and to receive feedback from the communities, so that when there are interviews with the persons who have nominated themselves, the criteria can be clear. This is a most critical responsibility. You can have a perfect commission in paper, but if you don't have the right team to lead the commission, it's going to fail, or it's going to lose a lot of time and affect relations and affect confidence. Regarding the number, that depends on a mix of factors, right? I have just been a month ago in Mali, and the commission in Mali has 25 members, for the simple reason that they have an identity conflict in that country, and they feel that they need to have representatives of each of the ethnic groups in Mali. But the reality is that that will be very much a political decision, and it will probably combine both of the aspects that are necessary here. On the one side, the capacity of the individuals that you're going to have, and on the other side, the need to instill confidence in the different sectors of society. So there is, I think, a mix of both elements. But that decision is, to me, one of the most important decisions at the very beginning of the work of the Commission.
And if I could just add a PS, I think one of the traps, I would call it, of delegated appointments to a commissioner table is it runs the risk of compromising the independence of the commission. If people think they're there as a spokesperson for this or that group, it ties them in a way from their open thinking about other perspectives and other things. I think it is important to have full engagement in setting the terms of reference and the mandate. What is the problem we're trying to solve? A lot of times people can spend a lot of energy and realize too late that you're not even working on the same problem. What is the problem you're trying to solve? That has to be really clear in the mandate. Ours was actually quite poetic, and it said, the sharing of our truths will contribute to the healing of our communities and the setting free of our spirits and our relationships. So it was really quite poetic in that way, but it was about healing and shifting things. And then the last thing that I would like to say about the issue of commissioners, because I think I only told you a portion of it. You could apply for a commissioner job in Canada. You also could be nominated by a particular group, and there was a headhunter. So they had an independent person who was looking for the kind of skills you need. A person who understands politics and knows the issues is not necessarily someone who's good at running process or knows how to run a hearing. So you need to have skills that are there. So you could either basically apply, as they say, apply for a job, or you could be nominated by someone, or the headhunter could find you in their Rolodex and propose you.
Thank you very much to the panelists. Let's give applause.